Right now in the Q&A, D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser live in the studio to bring us the newest information about the coronavirus scare, its impact, and preparations that are underway should the virus be discovered here in D.C. She's also talking about Super Tuesday and her supportive candidate, Michael Bloomberg. And we're talking about the recent violence in the district. 4 of the 28 victims this year have been under the age of 18. Send us your questions for the mayor. You can text them to this number on your screen, 202-895-5700. Good evening, everybody. I'm Bruce Johnson. Welcome to the Q&A. One thing you need to know about the show is that it's all about you. You send us your questions, and we'll do the work to make sure you get an answer. Now, throughout the show, we're going to be on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram answering your questions. Just be sure to use the hashtag, the Q&A. Here at WUSA 9, we're all about the facts, not fear when it comes to the coronavirus. Here's a look at the latest headlines, folks. Health authorities say 4 more people have now died from the virus. That brings the number of deaths in the U.S. to 6, all of them in Washington state. At least 2 were residents of a nursing home. There are now 91 cases of the coronavirus in 10 states. New York announced its first positive case over the weekend. There have been no confirmed cases here in the DMV, but several people are being tested. We wanted to answer a few quick questions about the coronavirus. First, how are doctors determining who should be tested? The CDC released new guidelines. People with symptoms of the virus qualify for testing, even if they have not traveled to virus-hot zones. Experts warn that may result in an increase in positive cases because more people will be tested. But that does not mean the virus is actually spreading faster. Next question. What's Congress doing to help battle the virus here in the U.S.? There's a bipartisan measure on the table right now that would give $7 to $8 billion in emergency funding. Aides for both Democrats and Republicans say it has support from both sides. It could be unveiled as soon as tomorrow and make its way through the House and Senate by the end of the week. D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser joins me live in the studio. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks, Bruce.
Really appreciate it. I know you're busy these days. We're going to start with the coronavirus, of course. No cases here in D.C.?
No cases here in D.C., but we are certainly preparing, making sure that our health department as well as our Homeland Security Agency for D.C. Is working together with all of our agencies to be prepared for any health challenges that arise in the district.
Is the position that we're going to get cases eventually?
I think that we've seen, I think when we saw the first cases reported in New York, and I think there's been a case reported in Florida, were all places where there's a lot of travel and people coming in and out. And so we're just asking people to use common sense community hygiene practices, including washing your hands, using soap and water, making sure if you're sick that you don't come to work, that you kind of don't spread your germs. Call your provider if you think you may have been exposed. Call ahead, even before going in to see your doctor so that they can give you some instructions.
What about city workers, though? Police, fire, you know, they work close, you know, our hospitals, our clinics.
Well, what we did, Bruce, is last week, I convened a huge meeting. Our government agencies, as well as stakeholder groups, our hospital association, our Department of Human Resources, our schools, to get information out to folks. We don't want to cause a scare, but we certainly want people to be prepared and use these common sense community hygiene practices.
Have you got a sense about possible hoarding? I'm hearing reports, and a lot of it coming from the media, about people going into drugstores, food stores, stocking up, including medical supplies. A large percentage of our medical medicines come from China, so people are hoarding.
Well, we want people to have the medications that they need. We want them to have things that they would have preparing for any flu season, to have, you know, fever-reducing medications, to have Kleenex, to have water and food in case you need to stay home for a few days, to have all of those things on hand. We don't think that the average person needs to wear a mask. Right. In fact, we think people trying to hoard masks would make them unavailable for the healthcare professionals who need them.
Okay, we got the all-important Cherry Blossom Festival coming up. It puts a lot of people in hotels here. People, tourists come here, they see the other sites, they go to the restaurants, they spend a lot of money. Have you heard anything about cancellations, reservations?
Well, we're
being
certainly
dropped?
concerned because we know that a lot of travel is being restricted, both internationally and domestically. And so we want to let everybody know that our hotels and restaurants are also following good hygiene practices, so they should feel safe going to all of our events. DC is open. We're not shutting anything down. Our Cherry Blossom Festival will go on as planned. And in fact, most people who come to our Cherry Blossom Festival are coming from right around in our region. So we're open and we are prepared. You should know we're the nation's capital, and we have a very sophisticated agency network, not just in DC, but across the region to prepare for any health scares.
Some 8% of the people coming in for the Cherry Blossom are flying internationally. I'm just going to go right to the point. You're concerned about, say, Japan. I mean, we got the trees from Japan. You know they're going to be here. It's an annual pilgrimage for them. Are you concerned about flights coming out of Japan?
Well, there are a number of restrictions that the State Department has issued about flying, and we're giving that advice to our residents. We're going to give that advice to our school children as well, who may have spring break trips planned. All of that information is available on dchealth.dc.gov, dchealth.dc.gov, and there you will see all of the travel restrictions. But it is important, while this virus started in China, is more related to the geography and not to the people. So we don't want to give anybody in the impression that they should stay away from certain people. They should just, as I said, follow good hygiene practices.
Okay. We don't know how many people are staying away from Chinese restaurants and maybe other eateries, but we've covered this story, and other people have also. People have decided on their own, certainly without direction, from you in your office, not to go to Chinese restaurants. I mean, they're avoiding certain foods. What do you think of that?
As I said, while the disease started in China, you don't have to avoid Chinese people. What we have to do is all follow good hygiene practices, washing our hands, staying at home if we're sick, avoiding being around people who may have colds in close proximity, and the like, and cleaning frequently used items that people touch.
Okay, you haven't changed anything about your coming and going. You haven't changed anything about your daughters coming and going.
I have not, although I did wipe down my house with Clorox wipes. And I'm going to just, as I said, I'm pretty vigilant as it is because I have a baby at home, but I just going to use that as an extra precaution.
Okay, stay with us.
Thank you.
We're going to be back in a few minutes to talk to the mayor about the recent crime uptick in the district. Stay with us. So time to send in your questions. You can text us at 202-895-5700. Okay, we're still live on Facebook, and I can't think of anything else that I haven't asked you about the coronavirus. Is there anything going on, with the city? You're wiping down your house. I mean, what about city employees? I mean, are you guys meeting? Are you having sessions?
Yes, we had a big session last Friday where I probably had 30 agency directors plus outside folks, people from COG, our National Guard, our sports and entertainment folks and hotel folks, our destination folks, our human resources people. So our directions to our employees, we went out, send out a big communique to all DC government employees. The schools will do the same to parents.
What about our shelters?
Same issue. And so all of our government buildings are managed by DGS. And I do have them looking into increased cleaning and disinfecting, and that's how we'll do it.
Okay, good. Scroll up to my next script so I have some idea of where we're going. Okay, I got that, but I need to. Okay, all right. So we got sound at the beginning. We're going to give them an update on Malachi, if there is one. Yeah, letting people out there on Facebook Live know we're going to be talking about violence coming up next. And what the Bowser administration, with the police chief, what we're doing to curb the violence. Who are the targets? Who are the perpetrators? I mean, let's talk about that too. I was talking to somebody in the newsroom, and you kind of got the impression, or at least this person kind of had the impression, that it's pretty widespread, and every young African American person might be involved in this, and that's just not true.
I want to get your approval on this.
4 to 5.
Yeah, I can get that later when we get to Bloomberg and all that kind of stuff. Okay, for those following us on Facebook, we're going to dip to black for a short period of time, then we're going to come up live on air, okay?
And no one's really safe, and then, no one's bulletproof.
Those are gunshots that you hear, caught on a doorbell camera. 13-year-old Malachi Lukes was shot and killed yesterday on S Street in Northwest. That's in the Shaw area. A 7th grader was injured in the same barrage of gunfire. That was one of 3 shootings in D.C. yesterday. Another man was shot and killed on Nash Street in Northeast. This is the second time in 6 months that Nahum Simmons' Nest doorbell camera captured the sound of a shooting. It happened in September, too. He said he's afraid of what his camera might catch next. Police say crime in D.C. is 3% higher now than it was at this time last year. There have been 28 homicides in 2020 thus far. We're back with D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser. Give me your personal feeling. You're a D.C. native. We've gone through periods. I mean, how does this compare to what we've been through in the past?
Well, any death, Bruce, I don't care if it's now or I don't care if it was in the 90s when we had hundreds of murders and we were really stricken with a lot of gun violence in a lot of places in the city.
We were called the murder capital of the world.
Yes, anytime you have a 13-year-old, young teenagers who are involved in this violence, a family who was grieving the murder of a 13-year-old, it should make all of us stop in place, be outraged, and commit to doing everything that we can to interrupt these cycles of violence that we see in this city. Too many guns, too many kids who aren't safe at home or don't feel safe at school and don't have the structure that they need to be safe. And so that's what we're faced with, and we are attacking it at every angle to try to get to the guns, to try to get to people who might be violent and have been violent in the past, to get them the types of programs and services that they need, and to prevent kids from being in the line of fire.
You anticipate my next question. Are we able to I like to keep calling them at-risk kids, but are we able to identify the child who is potentially running into a violent situation, either as a person with the gun or the person who's in the vicinity and possibly could get hit by gunfire?
Well, we're always looking for ways, working with our schools and working with our Department of Youth and Rehabilitative Services. We're trying to come up with all kinds of models. We've worked very closely with members of the council who have been very focused on our violence interruption efforts, and we continue to invest in those. We are looking at more direct interventions with schools for some non-traditional ways of identifying kids, making sure they have a safe passage to and from school, and making sure that they're more trusted adults that they can confide in with their fears.
What about these roving groups that were employed by the city, whose sole job was to look out for kids who were, walking that line?
Sure, we
into
continue.
trouble? We still have that.
we continue to invest in those programs. We have a more intense program that we will look to expand that started last year at Anacostia High School, where we're actually using our violence interrupters to go into school, work hand in hand with the principal, and so that the kids really get to know them and trust them. And I think that's showing early signs of working. The thing we know about these intervention programs is they take a long time to build up. So we can't just do one thing. We certainly focus on that, but we also have to focus on police presence. The chief and I actually, before I came here, just wrapped a meeting where we're talking about increased overtime in areas that have seen this violence, especially now. We don't always see back and forth violence in our city, but we have seen it over the last couple of days.
Do we know that to work, increased police presence? I've known situations in the past in the city where police were there. The moment they leave, shooting happens and they just turn around and come back.
For a lot of types of crimes, police presence matters. It doesn't always matter in the case of violent shootings and homicide. But we know our residents want to make sure they see. I've been to a lot of community meetings in my life, and I've never heard a community say, we don't want good police in our community, because we want good police to be here and keep us safe.
Okay. The mayor's going to stick around in just a few minutes. We're going to answer your questions about Super Tuesday. Now, you can still text your questions to us. We'll try to get to them. 202-895-5700.
No, it's not.
Are they out there? Are they on foot?
They're all on foot, bicycle, Segway, cars, community meetings. They're out there.
Right.
Now, my conversation, frankly, was we need to be out there more. Not just the officers, but the lieutenants, the commanders, and the chief. We all need to be out there.
I don't want to sound like the old guy, but there was a time when the cop was out there, and if something went down, depending on what it was, he knew what house to go to.
Right.
He knew where to go to get information. We still doing that kind of policing?
Yes.
All right. What about it? Somebody's asking coronavirus if the district is going to have an adequate supply of the masks and the suits. This is for healthcare workers, I take it, right? Are we running short on supplies? Or are we good with supplies?
No, we'll be fine with supplies. Part of our Homeland Security response is to procure all of the supplies that we need.
Right. And you shouldn't go out and purchase your own mask, because that's a mask that
Yes.
these people that you're talking about could use. What you got?
I'm going to get a name and a location.
Oh, that's policy. Okay. Yes. Scroll up a little bit. Okay. Okay, we're on Facebook Live. We're gonna dip to black, and then we're gonna come up live. Still be live on Facebook, but also on air. Welcome back to the Q&A. Of course, tomorrow is Super Tuesday, and another nominee has dropped out. Senator Amy Klobuchar suspended her campaign today. She'll endorse Joe Biden, who won 48% of the vote in South Carolina on Saturday. Now, over the weekend, Tom Steyer and Pete Buttigieg also ended their bids for the presidency. Tomorrow, 14 states, including Virginia, will make their pick for the Democratic nominee. More than 1,300 delegates are now up for grabs. It'll be the first time billionaire Mike Bloomberg appears on the ballot, which brings us to Mayor Muriel Bowser. You were one of the first big city mayors to get out there and endorse Mike Bloomberg. You still stand by that endorsement, or you want to change your mind?
No, absolutely. I think Mike is the one to take on Donald Trump and win. He has a national campaign, which we're going to see for the first time tomorrow. It's the first time Mike has been on the ballot, and he has the infrastructure to go the distance and win.
I got to get you to tackle these two things quickly. And I know you've addressed it before. Stop and frisk. He's apologized, but probably shouldn't have to apologize if he hadn't made these mistakes in the beginning. So how do you respond to that?
Well, I don't know that any of the candidates has a perfect record on criminal justice issues. Right now, even the former vice president is leading the pack, and we know his embrace of the 1994 crime bill and what that did to folks.
Put a lot of minorities in prison.
I would argue that it put far more people in jail than stop and frisk ever did.
Okay.
So I think we have to look at the totality of experiences from all the candidates and see what they've really gotten done, and that's why I'm behind Mike. He ran a city for 12 years.
Right.
He's been a crisis manager. He brought New York back out after 9/11.
What about his comments to women in these non-disclosure agreements? I mean, how do you explain that away?
Well, he's explained it. He said that he would release the women who were in an agreement with him that alleged some practices or some comments that he made. So he's offered to release those.
Mm-hmm. What is the lane for Michael Bloomberg? How does he get the nomination in your mind?
Well, he has to have a big day tomorrow. As I said, there have been four races, 4 contests so far. Mike hasn't been on the ballot in those races. He started, he got into the campaign late, and he has planned all in these 14 states. He's been there, he's been active.
How well, and you've campaigned for him down in Texas,
have.
I know. So how well does he have to do? Does he have to finish first, second? Is third too far back?
Well, he has to garner a lot of delegates, and so I think that he can see. It looks like, if you believe the polls, that Senator Sanders, Bernie Sanders, will be out ahead. His numbers are really good in the biggest states, in California and Texas, and then I think and Mike has been very active in those places. So we'll see what the voters say tomorrow, and if he nets a lot of delegates.
I think I know the answer to this, but Larry wants to know, if it comes down to you're having to choose between Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders, who do you choose?
Well, we're certainly not there yet. Mike Senate, my candidate is Mike Bloomberg. I think he's better than both to go to the distance and beat Donald Trump. I think Bernie has an infrastructure and he has a fundraising apparatus that is going to get him to the convention for sure.
It's going to be a broker convention, isn't it?
I think that the Vice President Biden has to demonstrate that, and he hasn't so far, that he can have the campaign apparatus, the fundraising structure to go to distance. Keep in mind what we're going to be up against in Donald Trump, that he's been able to raise money, he's gotten help from the Russians and whomever else. They run a nasty campaign, and we have to be able to stand up to that if we want to win. But the big thing for us, Bruce, is that we beat him.
I got to bring you back. This is good. More to be continued. Mayor Bowser, thank you so much for coming in and discussing all of this.
Go vote, Virginia.
All right.